Hey, so I didn't have any sort of intro or anything, but I'm still dealing with hack phones and things. And I was just, this is the thing that was crazy about this. I was just like, I'm outside just working on some stuff because it's really nice and it's pleasant. And it's just being in Oregon now, it's like, it's just so different being somewhere where you can be outside in the summer and not be miserable, because Houston's pretty I don't know. It's miserable in the summer. So, I was just working on that. I was going through because it just seems like there's all this drama about uh, the making of a hero essay, and I had posted about it on Twitter. Um, just kind of the genesis of that essay. So it started as an essay in the film class at HBU on a tour theory, and I did it on Shauna Arbach. And then in the first year we were first getting an unexpected journal ready, and those first few months, the first issue was in April, and then we did one in summer in June. Was it June or July? I don't even know. And then we were trying to like speed up the timeline because we wanted to have Advent actually in Advent, so we could do Dr. Ward's 10-year anniversary for Planet Narnia. And so we had to kind of compress things. And when we had the second issue, the essays from the second issue, we had a lot of essays for the second issue. And we're like, we have almost enough for two here. So we split it between the power and story and courage, strength, and hope. And so anyway, I had one and they were like, Annie Crawford said, this isn't fit. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then when we got to courage, strength, and hope, I was just going through what I had from the apologetics program and to see what would fit, and I had three of them. And when I submitted them, I was just like, I didn't say this, but in my head, I was thinking, pick what you want. I actually had another essay that I was going to write that I never got done because I submitted those three, and then they're like, oh yeah, let's use all of them. And then I had massive editing on the three to do because they were just all like two of them were reflections in the apologetics program, and then the one, the making of a hero or that ended up being the making of a hero, was in the film class, an actual essay. So anyway, that's kind of how it started. And we were just like, just trying to figure everything out. Like the first three essays or the first three issues, we had published them, but they didn't come out in print until September, which was all about the same time. So anyway, that's what was going on. And the making of a hero, it's like massive efforts to basically eliminate me from search as the author of it. Um, that, like I said, it started out as an auteur uh, essay in the film class. So I was just going through and looking at the feedback I got, right? And so I had just done that. I was looking at all the feedback, and then I went and I thought, uh, okay, I'm going to pull up the original essay because I haven't read that since, I don't even know last time I read that initial essay on auteur theory. So I was just looking it up. I was like, oh wow, yeah, this is kind of good. And I had just posted that comment that on comment that Jason Monroe had posted, and let me see. I don't know if I can get to it. What did he say? He's really good. And I was like, yeah, this is so true. So what did he say? He goes, this is on the hybrid. This is a comment on this second version, which was the first one I submitted because I just kind of tweaked it a little bit it wasn't written for that essay, but I just kind of tweaked it a little bit to make it um, fit, right? So he said, great essay. By the way, I can see the theme of courage in Lizzie going to visit her ex-husband in the hospital. There's also courage in what seems to be Frankie forgiving his mom for the deception. There's hope in that Lizzie sees a potentially better life for her son in getting away from her husband, and there's hope in Lizzie and Frankie reuniting for a better future in the end. Is there any way you could address and add some analysis or commentary on how the characters exemplify, courage and or hope? That's what I'd like to see more of. But again, awesome essay. So that was a comment on the original version. And then I said, good suggestion. That was actually my essay for the unit on auteur theory in film, which is why I included her influences. I could probably take all that out, except I do like to mention that Polish guy, because he's beyond a unique filmmaker. Everything he makes is brain bending. And I just pulled out my related essays when I'm looking for this. So this is my response. This is in the developmental editing. So they had given that. The content editor said, hey, yeah, keep the context. So it was kind of like a hybrid between what it ended up being in the first one. And then it gets to copy editing. And Annie Crawford's like, she goes, she makes all these comments about like how it doesn't really fit the theme and all this. And I'm thinking, okay, I asked. And it was kind of frustrating because in copy editing, it's just supposed to be like, like sentence structure and punctuation and stuff, not like developmental editing. But she was right. So I rewrote the entire thing. I reread Till We Have Faces, and I rewrote the entire essay. And then I didn't really have very many comments on that because it didn't get, I think maybe Zach might have ran through copy editing, maybe like a quick run through, but it really didn't get editing because sorry, I'm at the park, so the dogs are barking. So it didn't really get an editing for the last version. So anyway, on the thing on writings and writers, as I'm looking through this, I'm seeing like how many people had input into this essay. There were a lot of people that had input into it, and what it ended up as wasn't nearly what it started as. So this is the thing. Like I said, I've found that like basically everything I've written has been stolen. And I don't know what the deal was, but anyway, I was just sitting here. I had just posted Jason's comment on Twitter, and then I was looking at the first essay, right? The first one that I wrote in the film class, and as I'm reading it, the screen flashes, and like I've had people in and out of my computer, like they basically access it at will, and I'm thinking, you have got to be kidding me. It's like anything that I'm doing is like copying. Here's the deal. You're never going to develop your own voice if you're copying mine. You will never develop it if you're copying mine. And this is the thing. My writing, it doesn't just come out of your head. This is the thing that I had issues with, because when I was writing, because sometimes I would just write and it would just flow. And so I'm always waiting for the flow, right? Like writing and just thinking I have to be like that just it just come, and it's just the way it is. Always waiting for that, because sometimes that happens. But this is a reality. A lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times you don't have that. Sometimes you work into the essay. I mean, any writer will tell you this. This is what I learned in Dr. Ordway's class. It's like you edit, you revise. It never comes at the first one. You go back and I have to admit that like my Bible studies, I do um flow more than some of my other writings, but it's editing, and and having people that are good editors that can give you feedback. This is what's good about editing, or good editors. They understand your voice, and they help you improve your own voice rather than trying to overwrite your voice and sound like them. Because I've seen like compilations where it sounds like every essay sounds like the same person wrote it, and it was just a heavy-handed editor. And every writer has their own rhythm to it, and you just have to find your rhythm. You're going to have a different style than anybody else, but you're never going to find that style if you're this is the thing. There's a difference between copying other people, just ripping off their work, and taking inspiration from it. And what I've said before in some of my videos is that if they're good writers that you like, then read the people that they read, and hear their influences and kind of hear their style. But you're going to have your own. You're going to have your own style, and it takes time to do that. It just takes writing, and just keep writing. And sometimes you write and you're like, okay, that was a load of crap, that was really bad. I look back on some of my old stuff, I'm like, oh my goodness, and I thought it was good at the time. I was happy with it when I wrote it, but I became better. Like when I got into the apologetics program, I thought I was a good writer. I thought I was a good writer when I got into the apologetics program. And then I had Holly Ordway for my classes, and oh my goodness. It was this one time she said, like try to make my students cry. And it's like you have to be willing to take you have to be willing to take an edit. If you're so latched on to every single word, you're never going to get better, right? And sometimes other people can see your work better than you can sometimes, and that's the other part of being a writer. You have to learn when to listen and when to stand your ground on things. It's like you're not understanding what I'm saying or what the point of it was. So you have to be able to take an edit, but also know when to realize that the person isn't they're not hearing your rhythm, right? And this is what I've learned in the journal. There are sometimes people this is the thing. There have been essays where it needed some strong edits, and the writer didn't want to take it, but the other issue was in the same time that the editor wasn't hearing the writer's rhythm. There was a rhythm to what they were writing, and the editor didn't hear it. So finding editors that understand your rhythm, are okay with, it's a dialogue. I mean, it's a dialogue but you have to be willing to take input and realizing that if you want to get better, you have to be willing to change and improve. I mean, that's the thing, and uh, it's not. I mean, everybody has everybody has their own thing. Everybody has their own voice. Everybody has their own perspective, and you're not going to develop yours if you don't work on it and really write out what you think. And I don't know if this has come out yet, but Holly Ordway she's a great writing teacher. If you ever have an opportunity to take any sort of class for her on writing, you just really need to do it. She's so amazing. She's just amazing. I mean, she's a life-changing teacher. She really is. And she's really tough, but when she says you wrote something well, then it's good because she wouldn't tell you that otherwise. And she's tough, but she doesn't overwhelm you. She'll give you like a few things, like a few main things to improve on, and gives you a path out of it. So anyway, you don't need to copy me. And this is the thing. When I said, I asked for this, I literally did. Uh this is a story behind me in words. Um I this was when was it? I think it was after the first, yeah, it was after the first, was it? No, it was before the first March of Remembrance. It was right before. And this is a story. I was going into the, I was going in, okay. So when I go to church, there was I was always late. This is before I started volunteering and having to be there early. I was always late. And there would be this guy that was standing on the south door at the North Campus, and I'd usually be, I had three girls. I'd taken in, this huge campus. I'd be taking them in three different locations, three different buildings, different, up and down stairs. So I was like, and getting kids to church on Sunday is always a challenge. And so I was taking them to, by the time I get them everywhere they need to go, a lot of times I'd be like 30 minutes late. I'd just be blowing in, choir would already be over, and I'm just getting time for the service. And this guy was always standing at the door. I don't even know his name. And he's like, glad you can make it. Glad you're here. Glad you could make it. And he was actually sincere. He was not being passive aggressive at all, even though I'm like super late. And there were times when I was actually on time, and he just gave me this look like, what are you doing here this early? So anyway, so what happened was I was going to we were in the process of planning, I think, the March of Remembrance. And it was right before. And so they had a Saturday service. So I was going to their service, and it was at 9:20. And I was like, okay. So in my head, I had 9:30 because who starts a service at 9:20? Well, they did. So I go up, and I'm watching, I pull up, and there's this sandwich board out in front. And I look, I think it said the time. And I got there at 9:30, so I would have been on time, but it's actually started at 9:20. And I was like, man, I'm late. And so I was about ready to leave. And then I saw this sandwich board and it said, glad you can make it. Or we're glad you're here. Basically, the same thing that the guy at my church would always say. And I'm like, you know what? I go into my church way later than this. I'm just going to go in anyway, even though I'm late. So I go in, sit down, and Braun Barkley was preaching the service. And he was talking about influence. Like he was saying, Christianity only lasts one generation at a time. And he said his son didn't even know who Billy Graham was. And so anyway, things that I had been reading were about, you know, just influences and having like how like one part of the church would have a special area of gifting that, could benefit the other. And these were the things that I had been reading about, and I had been reading about C.S. Lewis and the influence that George MacDonald had on him is so much so that he saw him as a spiritual father, and they never even met. And it's this influence, right? This influence of writers, and George MacDonald, he was influenced by Novalis. And so anyway, I'm sitting there, and Rosalie, because I had been around, they're like super, I don't know the word, uh, super flowy in the spirit at that that congregation. And Rosalie Jerome came up to me and she's like, "You need to get your prayer language," because she was concerned that I didn't speak in tongues. So I go up to this lady, and I'm giving her. She just was going to pray for me to receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. And I said, Rosalie thinks I should be speaking in tongues, but that's not what I want. And she said, well, what do you want? I said, well, my thing is words. And I was telling her, I'm reading about like George MacDonald had this big influence on C.S. Lewis, and Novalis had an influence on George MacDonald. And I said, that's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I want. And she said, okay, well, that's what I'll pray for. And she said, and no fiction. I said, well, I don't really agree with that, because Jesus spoke in parables and fiction can speak truth. And she said, well, what I got was truth. And I said, okay. And so she prayed for me. So then right after that, this is when we were getting just the beginning of the March of Remembrance in 2012. Rob Bryant was going to be doing, his church was hosting like a pastor's lunch, and we were going to send out a letter, but he had some, I can't even remember what happened. He had some crisis come up, and so he wasn't available, and we needed to get it out. And I was like, I can do this. This is my thing. I just asked for this. I can do this. And so I wrote the all call for basically the churches, that first pastor's luncheon that we had to get um, churches in with us for that first event. So anyway, when I say I asked for it, I did. And obviously God's given it to me, because everybody else seems to think so and is stealing it. But this thing, you don't need to steal mine. You just ask. If you want it, you ask God for it, and He'll give it to you. He'll give it to you. He'll give you something. Like I said before, you can't be me, and I can't be you. And God has a purpose and a plan for every single one of us, and you will speak to different people than I will. You'll have a different style, a different mode, a different method. So don't waste your time trying to copy me. I mean, if you can take inspiration from me and clean things for me, awesome. That is just like amazing. That just tells me that God's good, and He gave me what I asked for. But if that's what you want, ask Him, and He'll give it to you. He'll give you the same thing. That's what I asked for. He gave it to me, and you can do it too. So anyway, those are just my thoughts. Can you guys like just stay out of my computer? I'm just getting so tired of this. It's getting old, and I'm sorry, but you know, if you keep it up, eventually I'm gonna get somebody that's actually gonna respond, and authorities, you're gonna go to jail for it, because hacking is a crime. Okay, so it's really not worth it. I mean, whatever you're gonna publish or whatever you're getting paid to publish, it's not gonna do you any good if your butt's sitting in jail. Okay, so let's just cut the crap. Can we do that? So anyway, uh, just some thoughts I'm writing. Seriously. Seriously. You can get your own stuff. It takes work, I know. And sometimes you write stuff and you just like, that's what somebody told me. That's why that's why we edit, right? That's why we edit. It can be fixed. It all can be fixed.